Hey everybody, welcome to the Gen X Experience. I'm Victor and I was there. For any of you returning back to PopCon, thank you. For what was once PopCon didn't accurately showcase what my channel's ultimate goal was, and my content wasn't very clear. But now with the Gen X Experience, I'm able to take you on a ride to that wonderful era, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So let's get started. Must-see TV. Does it ring a bell? If so, click that like. I'll wait. Now hurry up, Thursday night must-see TV waits for no one. Thursday night TV was must-see television, although NBC had not yet coined that phrase when it first climbed out from third place in the networks. Sadly, there were only 3 networks. The best night of television on television may not have been the snappiest of slogans, but in 1983, NBC was poised to launch one of the most memorable nights of the week. A night of TV that would go down in history and leave an indelible mark on the Gen Experience.
Favorite night of comedy, Thursday.
As the decade of excess debuted, evening television was a landscape littered with whatever the networks could find. Some of the most groundbreaking comedies had recently faded away. The important and often socio-political sitcoms like Maude, Mary Tyler Moore, and All in the Family were gone, and an era of silly fun would emerge. We needed to laugh, this kind of laughter, and the 80s delivered. The block of time between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. was in flux, but the sitcom would eventually reign as the decade moved forward and through the 90s, and every network, including some new ones, would eventually follow. Older dramas were taking their final bow, and adventure shows like Buck Rogers in the 25th Century were canceled, while other programming moved to different nights of the week to make room for what NBC risked everything on, making a block of situation comedies that were right for the family and America at this time. 1980, 81, and 82 seasons were the awkward years, while NBC would blossom and grow into its own. 1983 was their coming of age. Using the sitcom Gimme a Break to kick off the night, it was followed by a successful mid-season replacement called Family Ties and the sophomore hit Cheers, taking the 3rd spot since making a name for itself the season before. They still looked for that 4th show since having moved the ABC stolen comedy Taxi to another night after testing it on Thursday in 1982. With this season's confidence came new branding, the best night of television on television. And by 1984, that slogan would not be wrong, even if a bit awkward. They pulled out all the stops and changed our Thursday forever. The magical combination of the 1984 season would consist of The Cosby Show, Family Ties, Cheers, and Night Court. Thursday night's broadcast schedule changed the TV landscape so much that all family conflicts seemed to be put aside, and it was a shared experience to gather around one TV and probably one network as we invited the extended families and friends from these popular shows into our homes, the TV families we fell in love with. You actually hated missing a week, but we knew we might catch it again in reruns during the summer. You might even put your home phone handset off the hook so not to risk being disturbed. We couldn't stream it later. NBC jumped to number 1, and while they worked to also fine-tune their other nights of the week, the other networks joined in the trend. But NBC had captured Thursday. Did your family gather around the set? What was your favorite schedule of shows? What made Thursday the magic weeknight? Thursday was a good bet because there was only one more day in the work or school week, and it was a good chance this night captured the most viewers, as most likely everyone was home since the weekend loomed only one more day ahead. Thursday also still allowed time to talk about all the shenanigans from Thursday night TV with coworkers and schoolmates the next day, with word of mouth keeping their popularity alive. By the mid-80s, there was no less than 48 sitcoms across the networks between Monday and Thursday during that block of scheduling. The other networks began to follow suit. That 8 p.m. time seemed to be ideal. After school cartoons and local news were over, dinner and dishes complete, homework done, and an evening of laughs awaited. You'd be hard-pressed to find 48 comedies across all networks or streaming platforms today. Drama and outrage, including the manufactured versions, seemed the norm. In regards to network TV currently, there's approximately 12.5 comedies on the air today. And hour-long shows with a heavy dose of humor like So Help Me Todd are more like the Gen X favorites Remington Steele or Moonlighting, so don't fall into the sitcom category. However, it is likely that this is where the classic sitcom has evolved to. But with some networks following the shared universe tactic, many nights have different shows that live within the same continuity, making very little room to shoehorn in a sitcom. Talking to you, Law & Order, NCIS, Chicago whatever. New sitcoms do pop up from time to time, but there are fewer than ever. Perhaps the days of the sitcom that we knew have come and gone, or at least, and sadly, are numbered. With the dawn of the recent reboot or continuation of Night Court, you can see the struggle trying to capture a once popular but now passé style of comedy. Besides a few favorites like Ghosts and Abbott Elementary, nothing compares to the 80s and 90s lineup. NBC led into their comedy block with the eternal staples Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy! Well, at least in my neck of the woods. They were like the pre-show before the 2 hours to come. We were ready for the humor that defined this era, and Thursday night TV got us through to the end of the week. The ritual was fairly the same from house to house. Some point during those 2 hours, depending on bedtimes, kids would eventually retire for the night, while the programming would lead to a number of successful, grittier dramas as a nightcap to those 4-show laughs at 10 p.m. From Hill Street Blues and LA Law to even the debut of the highly popular ER, our parents or older siblings would enjoy the more realistic fare that transitioned right into the 11 p.m. news, quickly recapping all of the headlines of the day before course correcting into adult comedy with Johnny Carson as the Kiss Goodnight. NBC knew how to keep you captive the whole evening. They had arranged a lineup that dared you to change the channel. And with their winning combination, why would you? They had the other networks, even the upstart Fox, and 2 new redheaded step networks, UPN and CW, in a checkmate situation. Even by the time The Cosby Show aired its final episode in 1991, its spin-off A Different World would kick off the night with Cheers and Night Court still in tow, while NBC tried out other sitcoms with Thursday night's built-in audience, hoping to find and continue their success. Some of the most successful shows on Thursday went to plus up other nights of the week. That included Night Court, and their audiences would follow. This allowed testing out new hit shows and would-be classics as a new generation was coming up the ranks and Gen X was growing up. Comedy was changing too, and some shows could not keep up and threw in the towel. Others made attempts to stay relevant, at least for a little while longer. Seinfeld had found its footing, and in 1993 the lineup Mad About You, Wings, Seinfeld, and Frasier found home on Thursdays. Finally, must-see TV was coined. It had been must-see TV for a decade, but with 1993, must-see TV was official and just reinforced the network's dominance. New characters, new situations, and an elevated sense of comedy that multiple generations could enjoy had emerged, and the change was welcome, bringing more fortune and glory to the Peacock network. And in 1994, they elevated the show Friends to starter of the Thursday scheduling block, and another 2 hours of comedy with staying power lasted through the rest of the decade. By 2000, Will and Grace debuted with great success, but the days of NBC's rule were numbered. The other networks vied for position and began to overtake the star performer. It couldn't last forever. Fox had become a contender, while ABC would rise to the top as NBC slipped lower and lower. The must-see TV slogan was given up, and in the mid-2000s, after 21 years of a 2-hour block of 4 comedies, NBC took the low road and introduced their first reality series, filling in one of the hours previously reserved for a comedy show. It signaled the end, and it came fast. Rankings would not improve, and eventually, by 2014, NBC no longer scheduled any comedies on their network. Thursdays had definitely lost their luster. Maybe ending a bit tarnished, that block of comedy during its heyday has gone down in history more than any other marketed night of television. Now there are multiple TVs to watch and countless devices to stream the content anytime you desire. No reason to get together and share the experience with your loved ones. And with the binge watching, you can finish those 6 to 10 episode seasons in a day, and before any of your friends. So not being allowed to talk about the show with someone who hasn't watched it yet, you just move on to another program as you are bombarded with new content left and right at an alarming rate. New shows come and go as one ends, another begins, keeping us in front of those screens. And no matter what your friends all say, they aren't all good. A lot of them are simply doo-doo. But I do remember a night we collectively loved television together. Thursday must-see TV, or the best night of television on television, is a thing of the past. But any past that continues to be relived, repeated, and revisited will live in our memories forever. The night had consistency through the 80s and 90s, and we could count on it. But more and more tests and temporary shows that many of us remember fondly and loved, like Caroline in the City, Veronica's Closet, and Suddenly Susan, kept being moved around and convinced audiences to finally click the remote and switch to other channels with an abundance of choices. That trend would continue with the growth of streaming being the final nail in the coffin. Thursday night lineup would never have the same pop culture iconography again. What was your favorite memory of must-see TV? What would have been your ideal Thursday night lineup out of all those incredible shows? Perhaps you simply missed the shared experience with family. Well, let me know and don't miss another great show from the Gen Experience like this one. Do me a favor and give me a like. And please click the subscribe to help me make more great content. Thanks for watching, and until next time.